You are listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
File access granted.
Welcome, skeptics, believers, idealists, and all those questioning the world around them. I'm Ty.
I'm Bailey.
And this is Cult Talk Conspiracy. And today, we are doing File 002, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. Now, have you ever heard of this, Bailey? Or do you remember this when this happened?
I do, actually. I was I wasn't excited, but I was actually pretty stoked when you brought this up because I was like, oh, I remember when that happened.
Yeah.
Because I'm the youngster of the crew, so
Right.
I don't remember when like a lot of the other events that we've talked about happened. So this one was really piquing my interest, even as young as I was when it did happen.
Yeah, I was 23 at the time this happened, and I was working a desk job, and I remember like the weeks and the days and everything like after this, and like even the day of, like just I had to bring up my desktop and see the news updates of everything happening in the investigation, just the mystery of it, because even today it's considered to be one of the most mysterious incidents in aviation history. And it's wild. There's a lot of twists and a lot of turns. And this isn't generally something I would be that interested in. It wasn't what I was expecting to be something I would be drawn to and want to present on this show. And I don't really remember exactly how I got on it, but I remember I was kind of like browsing, and it spurred my memory of when it was actually happening. And the more I read into it, I was like, wow, this is a crazy thing, and it would be perfect for the show. So
Nice.
I wanted to do it. To follow up Roswell, it's a pretty big task. So I was like, oh, at least I'll do this, and I can. It spurred my interest in like I work in like the aviation field, so there's a lot of things that kind of piqued my interest and things I'm kind of familiar with. So it was interesting for me.
It really is. I remember because I had to be, I think I was probably like 13 or 14 at the time. And we would we had someone that would watch us because my parents worked like an hour away, and they wouldn't be home until like 5 or 6 at night. So we'd get out of school at like 2:30, and anyway. So like I remember this being on the news, and we'd get there super early in the morning to catch the bus, and we'd watch it on the news before getting on the bus. And that was how I got introduced to it, was watching Good Morning America and hearing all about it, and just like what in the crap happened. Because like being that young, you're like, this kind of stuff isn't supposed to happen. Like that's not real. So it was different. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So I remember like all the craziness surrounding it when it happened. And, I remember just seeing stuff on Yahoo and MSN, just like my desktop news outlets, and seeing all that stuff. But I guess I really didn't understand like all the craziness that happened in it, or why it is such a huge mystery. But yeah, it's super interesting. And I kind of went in on that. I mean, like I did a lot more research than I thought I was going to do for it, and I ended up like, I have like 18 pages worth of notes, and I found it to be very interesting. And every time I would just find like a theory. The one thing about this whole thing is you find a theory that sounds plausible, and there's immediately something to debunk it, and it just keeps happening like that, and it's a wild ride. So I think without further ado, I think it's time to just buckle up, because we're going on a ride. We are unsealing Cult Talk Conspiracy Case File 002, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. File 002, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. So on March 8th, 2014, 227 passengers and 12 crew members boarded Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. Now, this was going from Kuala Lumpur, and they were heading to Beijing. Now, this destination, unfortunately, they would never reach.
Oh, no.
They were flying on a Boeing 777-200ER, departed Kuala Lumpur International Airport at 16:42 UTC. So we're going to be using UTC time just because that's the closest time I could find that.
Is that
kinda
like
lined
the
up with our time.
universal clock?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So using like the 24-hour clock.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
So they departed at 16:42 UTC, and this flight was supposed to take 5 hours and 34 minutes. That was the estimated time it would take. So as with all mysteries, how they all begin, everything appeared to be fine. And Kuala Lumpur Air Traffic Control recorded the last known transmission that would come from Flight 370. So KLIA, which is the ICAO code for Kuala Lumpur International Airport, they transmitted to Flight 370, Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 1-20.9. Good night. So
What?
basically, the flight had left Kuala Lumpur's care is what happened. So when a flight leaves, say it leaves nearest airport to us, CMH, the Columbus International Airport, they leave there. They're on the radar and on the radio control of CMH until they reach a certain point, and then they are then to take their radio and pass it off to the next air traffic control. So Kuala Lumpur, they went ahead, they passed it off, and this is when Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a 43-year-old veteran pilot who had logged 18,000 hours flight time, responded, "Good night, Malaysian 370." And that would be the last time anyone would ever hear from Malaysian Flight 370.
Oh my God.
So, pretty poignant. It's pretty like crazy thing. That's the last transmission to ever come from this plane.
I just got chills. That's eerie. Oh, that's, yeah. Ooh. Where would they pass off to?
What's that?
Where did they pass off to?
So they were supposed to pass off to Ho Chi Minh was the next air traffic control. So, Kuala Lumpur gave them the directive, now you're to contact Ho Chi Minh. But after this exchange, Flight 370, they failed to signal Ho Chi Minh air traffic control as it passed into Vietnamese airspace. So as it was passing into Vietnamese airspace, it was supposed to contact Ho Chi Minh.
Yeah, like,
and
hey, we're here.
Did. Yes, basically, yeah. Let them know that they're in their airspace and that they take control over tracking the plane at that point.
Okay.
So at this time, the pilot from another aircraft attempted to make contact with Flight 370 using the International Air Distress Frequency, the IAD. So this is a frequency used by aircraft for emergency or distress communications. So the pilot, he reported that although he was able to establish communication, at one point, all he received was static and what sounded to be mumbling.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And from this point on, all calls to the cockpit were acknowledged but left unanswered. So they acknowledged the incoming call, but they did not answer anything.
Oh, I have so many theories in my head right now.
And this is very early on. I mean, this is a half-hour range from when it leaves Kuala Lumpur to Ho Chi Minh failing to make contact and this other aircraft failing to make contact. So this happens pretty quick. From this point on, Flight 370 is picked up on several radar networks. So it's still traveling. It's still being picked up as being in the air and radar picking up, but nobody can make contact with it. So every hour, there is something called an automated handshake between the flight satellite communication link and the MRSAT satellite communications network. So basically, there is a link on the plane. There's a satellite in space, and every hour they handshake, which just means they make contact. Like it just says, here I am, and it records that.
Another way we're being tracked. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So imagine there's probably something like that in our phones that we don't even know about.
Nope. That's the quickest way to get me off the grid. Right fucking there. Tell me that all the technology is shipped. Everything's been watching me, listening to me. Shut up in the comment section. I don't want to fucking hear about it. Bailey's gonna disappear, man.
It's pretty obvious. That remains the only consistent way that Flight 370 can be tracked. Because They can't make any contact with them. So the only way they can really track this airline consistently is by this hourly automated handshake. Now, this handshake doesn't have to be turned on or turned off or acknowledged or anything by anyone on board. It's all automated. So no matter what's happening on the plane, that handshake will always happen as long as there's power to the plane.
Oh, okay.
So at 22:30 UTC, Flight 370 misses its expected arrival at Beijing Capital International Airport. So at 22:30 is when it was supposed to make its landing, and it unfortunately missed that. So after failed attempts to establish communication with the plane, Malaysian Airlines announces the flight has gone missing.
Oh, that was not a...
And they only do that. It doesn't take them long to do this. It's like within another half-hour range. Because they obviously know, and they're tracking the plane. They're not make communication. So and it misses its landing, because when it is actually flying over the Indian Ocean, it makes a turn, and we'll talk about that later. But it does make a turn, so it's flying, and although it's not making the correct flight pattern, it's still being controlled very professionally. It's not dropping or going higher than it should. I mean, it's still maintaining a level flight pattern, just not the correct flight pattern. So on March 8th, we've crossed over UTC time. We've now crossed over. It's March 8th, 0011 UTC. So it's 11 minutes past midnight UTC.
Okay.
The final automated handshake is made, although following this, at 0019 UTC, a partial handshake is sent out from the aircraft.
What?
So at 011 UTC, we get the regular hourly handshake.
Okay.
So it makes that, but then 8 minutes later, there's a partial handshake, which is not automated. So there's a partial handshake, and investigators believe this to be the result of power failure between the time the engines would have stopped due to running out of fuel and the emergency generator kicking on. So what they theorize is sometime after the last handshake at 011 UTC, the engines failed, they lost fuel, and then they had the emergency generator kicked on, and that's what sent that partial handshake.
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, the plane's still on. You would assume that it's in the air. Otherwise, why else would it be on? That would be like an emergency signal going up, like, "Hey, we're in trouble."
Right.
I mean, to a layman, that sounds fine.
Right. Now, this is only a partial, so it's kind of like a blip, which would make sense because, the generator would kick on, and it could just be a slight power surge and probably like kicked on all the systems at once and sent that partial handshake. So that's what's theorized. At 01:15 UTC, March 8th, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 fails to make its automated hourly handshake. So for the first time in this whole ordeal, it misses the automated handshake, which means there is no power to send out that handshake.
That's not good. That's all kinds of not good. So we officially have lost all contact with.
Yeah, they've officially, as of 01:15 UTC, March 8th. So that was what? I think a whole 6 hours. This has been going on 6 hours that this has been going on from departure. So it lost all contact. More than likely, fuel ran out.
Oh man,
is what's theorized.
Man, how many people were on the plane? Do we know?
So, yeah, you had on the plane, you had a total of 227 passengers and 12 crew, so 239 people on board.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of people to lose.
That is. So from March 8th, 2014 to January 17th, 2017, a massive $160 million search and rescue recovery follows. And that is still this day, the most expensive search and rescue effort in history.
I mean, yeah, like that's huge.
Oh yeah. And the Indian Ocean, it's really easy for us as like Westerners to comprehend, because we have, the Atlantic and the Pacific, they call those are giant bodies of water. But even like over in Europe, like or the other side of the world, the Indian Ocean, that is a huge piece of water.
Oh my gosh.
That's a huge ocean, and you don't really, we as Westerners kind of get stuck into thinking, everything's, the biggest stuff's around us, and there's nothing big around it. But yeah, over like the Indian Ocean, that's a huge piece of water. So this search and rescue operation, they expanded the entirety of the Indian Ocean because that's all they really knew was that the plane was flying over the Indian Ocean. Now, as you can guess, sadly, this search and rescue, like they are not looking for, and I think this is true in all aviation accidents. You're not looking for survivors.
Yeah.
So you're basically searching for bodies and wreckage. And the best case scenario is you find the transponders.
Is that like the black box?
Yeah, you find the black box. You can kind of piece together what happened. That's really all you can do in one of these operations, is basically just find closure.
Yeah. I mean, you can hope that you find survivors some way, somehow,
right?
But the likelihood of it is just not.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very unlikely. I mean, I don't know of any real like major airline crashes or incidents have ever resulted in like survivors like we see on like TV, like Lost and things like that. I don't know of anything like that.
None that I can recall. Offhand. That's
right.
For sure. Yeah, that one's definitely you kind of know what you're looking for there, and it's unfortunate. Right. And I mean, over the Indian Ocean too. Like, okay, let's put into context that it's a fucking ocean. Like, this is not a stream or a creek or a lake. Like, it's a fucking ocean. That just boggles my mind. And then you've got predators in the ocean too. Like, I mean,
oh yeah.
Like, I wonder what I mean. Well, I don't. I wonder, but don't like what the rescue team's mindset would have been. Like, are we going to find people at all? Or are we just going to find machinery?
I imagine they knew what they were getting into. Because I mean, you have to imagine like a plane crashing at any point. I mean, the likelihood of survivors is very minimal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's flying statistically is a very safe way to travel.
Right. Yeah.
But
exactly.
it's not like you're driving your car and you can get in like a slight fender bender. There are minor plane crashes. There are things that have happened, and a plane coming in, failing to land properly, and might be just a minor accident. Well, for the people on board, but a major thing for the airports. But there are things like that. But I think you lose a plane over the ocean, the likelihood of finding survivors is very, very slim.
Oh yeah.
So this effort involved government from across the globe. U.S. joined it. I mean, every major nation.
Oh, we got involved. You don't say.
Yeah.
You don't say. Okay. Well,
every major nation got involved in this, and they employed some of the most advanced oceanic survey equipment ever deployed.
Wow.
And there was a lot of like independent companies that got involved too. That were offering like state of the art, like experimental, survey equipment, and just
that's amazing.
Kind of everyone getting involved. Yeah, $160 million. It was a massive effort. So along with search and recovery, there was also an extremely high profile investigation that followed.
Mm-hmm.
And this investigation was widely panned. I mean, it was saw as an embarrassment by like the Malaysian government. To this day, I mean, this is still a mystery because even this investigation was pretty open-ended.
Oh.
So this was such a high-profile investigation because this was, of course, a high-profile incident. So this drew a lot of criticism. People questioned the way it was handled, and it ultimately did end inconclusively. I mean, after everything, and just all the pain and suffering she went through, it ended inconclusively. All these people involved, all this money spent, lives lost, and at the end of the day, they basically had to say, we don't know what happened.
Oh,
yeah.
How heartbreaking. Oh, because my mind instantly goes to all those families, and like, because I mean, like spending all that money and all of those governments and private companies getting involved as well. And like you're thinking, okay, everything's being thrown at this. Literally everything we can throw at it is going into it. And there's still nothing. That's mind boggling.
Yeah, still this day. And that's why, covering this, I was like, there are some wild theories we'll get into later. but I don't want to like entertain those too much because I do want to be kind of respectful because this is something that happened.
Mhm.
You know, we weren't even at the 8-year mark when it happened.
Oh wow.
Or we just passed the 8-year mark actually. We passed the 8-year mark.
Oh.
So he's past the 8-year mark. So this is something that, you know, there's people that are still affected by this. There's families, there's children, there's, you know, parents, things like this that are still affected by this. So I wanted to kind of handle with some sort of gravity and respect because it is something that did affect a lot of people. And very recently too. That's 2014 is not that far away. So it was something that still to this day affects people. And the search only ended in 2017. I mean, there was 3 years, nearly 3 years. People were out there searching for this thing and never found anything. We found like small bits of, you know, pieces of the plane, but nothing like what you should find in something like this, which raised a lot of questions.
Oh my gosh.
So at various points during the investigation, possible causes being entertained included hijacking by terrorists or even members of the crew. But one of the most plausible reasons considered to be an hypoxia event. Now, hypoxia, what that is when the cabin of the plane experiences decompression that goes undetected by the crew and causes the occupants to become incapacitated. Now, this is something that's been recorded. It's something that's happened before. That's what many people believe to be the most plausible thing that happened. But but like I said, the thing with the Malaysian Flight 370 is the amount of time it took for them to lose communication is like less than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And the plane was in the air for almost 6 hours.
It really does seem planned. It really does, because like you make sure they're off the ground, and like I'm not planning any kind of heist, just so we're clear. Just so everyone's aware, I'm not planning any kind of heist. I just watched a lot of Mission Impossible and Jack Reacher the other day. But anyway, like you'd want to make sure they're up in the air, and like it sounds like they were only fueled up for 6 hours. Yeah,
that's with most, because jet fuel is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you're flying 3 hours, you're going to have enough fuel to make it like 3 hours 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to tank these things up, and you know, because fuel's really expensive, and they're not just going to waste it. So
right, and if their trip was only 5.5 hours, and you know, you give a little bit of leeway for like if something were to happen, they have to slow down or whatever. Like, I mean, that would make sense. And then like you just land wherever you land.
Right.
I just don't know where is the black box in the plane. Is that something you can just rip out like as a passenger?
No, I don't think so. I think after 9/11, if I remember, and I didn't look into this too much, but I think after 9/11, because that was one of the things on 9/11, I think they actually stopped the black box. They stopped the flight recorder. And I think that after that, the black box is now like very secure to where it can't be turned off. And it can't be just, you know, access ripped out or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 was at one point considered to be the deadliest incident involving a Boeing 777. We'll get to that later. But none of the 239 on board were recovered, and only small pieces of the plane itself were ever located.
Oh, where were they located?
What's that?
Where were they located?
Just in the ocean. Like a small piece, I believe, washed up on shore near an island, and it was a very small piece.
Mm-hmm.
There was stuff like that, but never nothing ever came with a flight recorder, no bodies, you know, nothing significant other than, you know, bits of the plane.
Oh.
So the Malaysian Airlines, it was renationalized from private company to public, which basically means that the Malaysian government took it over.
Yep,
because it no longer had it was, couldn't stay alive privately.
That's a big old you fucked up right there.
Yep.
Like,
yep.
Yeah. That's what that is.
Yeah. The next of kin of everyone on board was offered a condolence payment from Malaysian Airlines of anywhere between $2,000 to $5,000.
Oh.
Although most of the people refused to accept the money, seeing it as like blood money.
Good for them.
Now, this flight did have a lot of Chinese passengers, which caused a big problem because many Chinese citizens called to boycott all things Malaysian.
Wow.
Any products made in Malaysia, any singers or celebrities who had ties to Malaysia. Now, ironically enough, the year this happened, 2014, This was actually declared earlier in the year to be Malaysia-China Friendship Year.
What?
Yeah. So this was supposed to be a year that celebrated the camaraderie between Malaysian people and Chinese people.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, this also resulted in many Chinese citizens, they also stopped traveling to Malaysia for for vacations, things like that, and estimated a $500 million loss to tourist revenue for Malaysia.
Yeah, tourist revenue. That's man, in a big city too. That hurts. You notice that difference, and you notice it quick.
Of course. Now, there was some good to come from all this, however, as there was major overhaul in the air traffic safety standards, including increased battery life on underwater locator beacons, lengthened times of flight data recorders. I think they took it from being, because we talk about the handshake that happened every hour. I'm pretty sure that's now like every 15 minutes now, I think it is.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So they bumped it up a lot. That was the tragic story of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. But as tragic as it is, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. So, following the incident, the first assumption reflected in most media was the possibility of hijacking, which I feel like that's, this is 2014, 12 years removed, or 13 years removed from 9/11.
Yeah. I mean, just hearing it now, that was immediately where my mind went, was like, well, could it have been a hijacking?
Right. So the theory was the plane was hijacked and taken to a remote island, which is what a lot of people thought. It was hijacked, taken to a remote island, because there is an incident happened in the 80s, where North Korea had hijackers on a plane who hijacked a plane, took it back to North Korea, and used it as ransom.
Oh, wow.
Now, maybe people thought that, but see, the problem now, there was an investigation with this that that could have been taken and landed, and there were some researchers who pursued the idea and found there were 600 possible runways that they could have landed a Boeing 777 with the time and fuel that it had allotted.
Oh, over 600.
Over 600.
Oh.
And just in the vicinity, there were 600 runways that could have accommodated a Boeing 777. Now, however, in most hijacking scenarios, there is commonly a point to be made or a statement to get across, and a group will take credit for it. There'll be a video, there'll be a letter, something. They'll want to take responsibility for the incident. That way, they can establish themselves and get their cause across.
Yeah, it's for lack of better terms, it's seen as an accomplishment to these people. Look at this big, huge thing that I've been able to do and, present to whatever. It's a wicked mindset, man. But I mean, that's kind of how it's seen. I mean, it's
no one ever came forward. Now we'll talk about one here in a second that did, but no major accountable group or credible group ever came forward and said we did this, which is completely uncharacteristic of a terrorist organization, because that's the whole point of it, is to incite terror.
Yes. Oh yeah. You want people to know you did that.
Now, this was debunked because like I mentioned earlier, they did find small pieces of Flight Malaysia 370 over time. So that kind of debunked the whole idea of them taking the plane and landing it somewhere, because there was small pieces of wreckage that were recovered later. So there was a claim made by a group calling themselves the Chinese Martyr Brigade. Now, they sent letters, basically Chinese outlets, saying they did it. And these were disregarded because they just weren't a large group. Basically, just saw them just trying to basically take credit,
Yeah.
Say, oh, we did this, fear us, but it was never taken to be credible.
Oh, man, don't do that. Good people, don't do that. Just don't. I have so many thoughts. Don't do that. I'm trying to be respectful. Don't do that.
So another popular hypothesis was the idea that the airline was victim of some sort of cyber terrorism. Okay. Or maybe the onboard critical systems were hacked by an external source and either took control of the plane or diverted it somewhere, or just flat out crashed it. So that was one popular theory. Now, this picked up traction after a man named Hugo Tesso presented at a conference in 2013 an application that he was able to use to hack into pilot training programs.
Oh God, no. Nope.
Now, I don't know. I tried to find out who Hugo Tesso was. Could not find out who he was, but he was some sort of like software developer. And why you would make an application that can hack planes, I don't know. I guess for government purposes, but he did it on a flight training program.
Oh my God.
Now, this was before Flight 370, and it was never considered a credible threat by Federal Aviation Administration, as a software on an actual plane is much more secure than flight simulators, which is what Tesso used to demonstrate the software.
Yeah, no, I don't trust that.
You don't trust that?
I don't trust that at all, man. Especially since like we can't find anything after that, because like that's a huge. Even that going into testing, well, I would consider a pretty huge deal. Like you can crack into a pilot's flight training. Like, is it all computer? Because I know very little about aviation.
Yeah,
like,
so a flight training is just like basically like a cockpit on a on a computer. Basically, is all it is.
Okay, so it's just
super sensitive, super realistic controls, things like that. So
he was able to still hack into that on a simulation.
Yeah, he was able to hack into a training simulation, basically.
But I mean,
he did this a year before Flight 370.
Yeah, no. Because likely you'd want. I mean, just me personally, you would want like your training stuff to be a little bit more protected than like the real stuff, because then that's how you're teaching your pilots,
right?
Like that's how you're teaching them to get away from situations that could be harmful. So like I don't know. I don't trust that. I'm also a wee bit paranoid. I don't trust it. I don't.
Now, now Gayla Keller, she is a spokesperson for the Boeing company, which were the manufacturers, of course, the Boeing 777. She dismissed it. She was quoted as saying, "We are confident in the robust protection of all flight critical systems. An inability of a hacker to gain access by either external or internal means on the 777 and all Boeing airplanes." Now, this to me falls similarly into the previous theory. Terrorist act. The whole point of a terrorist act is to incite terror and to take credit for that terror. If for a hacker group to do this, I feel like they would, in the same vein as any terrorist organization, come forth to boast about what they've done, how powerful they are, how smart they are, especially with cyber hacker. I feel like our cyber hacker has a different level of arrogance, where they're like, "Oh, I have broken into your software," and proclaim genius. I feel like that would be similar in that vein.
Yeah, I can't remember what his name is right now, but even the guy that broke into the, I think it was the Secret Service security, he said your security's shit. And like trolled him and whatnot. So like even someone like that is like, hey, like,
yeah,
look, I did this. Like, and he's like, I mean, that guy. I don't think that guy was a part of any kind of group or anything like that. But I mean, it does play more into that theory that if it were a group, they would come out and want the recognition for it.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're willing to hack a plane with like children and families on it and crash it, I feel like you're a pretty evil son of a bitch. So you're gonna come forth and like have your villain moment.
Yeah, because that's absolutely heinous. It's, I mean, almost 300 people. Like that's 239 people. Like that's heinous.
Yeah,
that's just, there are words that I don't know yet for how awful that is. That's awful.
So this next possibility had some major backing based on an incident that occurred only 3 years prior, also involving a Boeing 777. Now, on July 29th, 2011, Egypt Air Flight 667, while still on the ground, experienced a severe oxygen-fed explosion. This explosion was so severe that even though it only took firefighters 3 minutes to arrive, it still took them 90 minutes to put out the fire.
Whoa.
So in the aftermath, it was found the fire destroyed the flight controls and burned halfway through the hull of the actual plane.
And what set off the explosion again? An air what?
An oxygen-fed explosion.
Oh, oxygen.
So
okay.
oxygen is very flammable, in its pure form. So there was an oxygen-fed explosion, something sparked inside the cockpit, and it was an explosion. No one was hurt because, like they said, they were still on the ground.
Yeah.
So they're able to evacuate quickly. But it took firefighters 3 minutes to get there and start working on the fire. It took them 90 minutes to put it out.
Huh. That's insane. That's a big
Now that was on the ground. That was just the plane on the ground, and that was pretty devastating. It burned a hole through the hull, destroyed all the flight controls.
God.
Now, could you imagine if they were in the air when that happened?
Oh my gosh, you just go poof. Like,
right.
Oh my gosh. Because I mean, oxygen, like the oxygen level gets thinner. I don't know how these things work, but I might just be spouting bullshit. But I believe like the air like gets harder to breathe, like the higher up you get and everything.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you just go poof.
Unfortunately, you don't have to imagine too hard what happened, because in one case, 1998, Swiss Air 111 was traveling across the Atlantic Ocean, had an electrical fire in the cockpit, which spread rapidly, causing the plane to crash into the ocean, killing all 229 on board.
Oh.
So this is pretty plausible. Now, the reason this case is so interesting when discussing Flight 370 is because both transponder and communication systems were destroyed in these fires. But in cases where things like this occur, there is usually time for a mayday, or at least the plane is located because, they're still able to send a signal out.
Yeah.
I think the main reason this comes up a lot. This is what I think is a good clue in this whole scenario to debunk a lot of these things, is because the communication is lost so suddenly after takeoff. You have about a half hour where they communicate with Kuala Lumpur, and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But the plane continues flying for 6 hours. So, I mean, if there's an oxygen-fed explosion, that plane is not staying in the air.
No. Oh, no, it's not. It's going down. Like, all of it would go... Yeah, it wouldn't be shown as flying, or even to have power at that point.
Right.
Like, no, it would just... It would no.
Yeah, so, I mean, the only way it would have... and this is something, too, if a pilot is going to know if they don't have communication, because communication is very key in air travel.
Mm-hmm.
The sky's pretty big. There's a lot of things in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
So you constantly are communicating your location. You're keeping, radar tracking, so that way you can navigate around other planes. There's a lot that goes into it. A pilot is going to know if they've lost communication.
Okay.
It's not something where you're going to, communication will drop out and you're not going to realize it. So for a pilot to lose communication, he would immediately have to act and find some way to land the plane. And, for the thing to stay, he would have at least made a beeline to try to get communication, or try to signal that he didn't have communication.
Right. Yeah.
Something that happened. But for him to lose communication, if it happened a half hour into the flight, I feel like he would have turned around. Yeah,
because I mean, you're not that far away. You've got plenty of fuel. A half hour in, you can still turn around and be like, the communication's not working. Get another plane if you have to. However it works. I don't know. But yeah, that's plausible. And it doesn't make sense. It clearly doesn't make sense not to.
Now, one thing I know from working with the FAA is the FAA, and of course, I don't imagine this is not the FAA. The FAA is the American airplane standard. So the FAA, everything that is used under FAA standards is redundant, which means that there is it's double. If you have a power cord for your radio, there's 2 power cords. If there's a signal for your radio, there's 2 signals.
Okay.
There's a backup for everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it takes a lot to knock this stuff out. And it's not something as simple as you unplug your radio.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be deactivated.
Yeah. You have to go in and intentionally do that twice. And you'd have to know that it's in there twice too. So,
exactly.
Yeah. If someone would have to know that plane, which I mean, with the internet, because this was 2000, talking about Malaysia, this is 2014. So, I mean, it's not like it would be hard to find that at that point. But I mean, it's still.
Right. Now, if this was to be someone disabled the flight communication and kept the plane going, it obviously had to be someone that knew what they were doing. So one of the popular theories was that the disappearance of Flight 370 was possibly part of an elaborate murder-suicide plot executed by the man who was in charge the whole time, Captain Zahari Shah.
Oh.
Now, by all accounts, Captain Shah was a proven pilot with a long history of professionalism and was highly regarded by his peers. However, just 3 days prior to the disappearance, his wife and children moved out after claims that Zahari was seeing another woman.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Was he?
I don't know.
Oh.
I assume so.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So
No.
people around him, did say that, obviously Captain Zahari had expressed that he was very upset in the days leading up to the flight. I mean, that's understandable. Now, I know pilots have to go under a lot of psychological evaluation. Like, I'm pretty sure pilots have to get, psych evals pretty regularly.
Oh, yeah. And good. Because they're entrusted with a lot of people and a lot of, yeah. I'm glad they're checking up on them.
Yeah, exactly. And, if something like a divorce is happening, I know, that pilot will get put on, some sort of, kind of administrative leave just to kind of, help them deal with their emotional stuff before they get them back in the cockpit. So
he really shouldn't have even been flying at that point.
I don't think he was necessarily I mean, I don't know how things work outside the U.S.
Okay, so different rules and regulations.
Maybe.
So.
But, I mean, he wasn't going through a divorce yet. His family just kind of moved out on him. So he might not have actually, made this known to his peers. This might just be friends who knew this.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, was there anything else in, his history that was notable?
No.
Oh, man.
No, that's it. So, we briefly touched on Captain Shah earlier. He's 53, veteran pilot. He first joined Malaysian Airlines in 1981, worked his way up from cadet to captain, and had been the captain of the Boeing 777, the model of aircraft designated Malaysian Flight 370, since 1998.
Wow.
So he's been flying this thing for, 16 years?
16 years, yeah.
Yeah. So, and Captain Shah was originally from the island of Penang. Now, Penang is a small island off the northwest coast of Malaysia with a population of 1.7 million. Now, during the investigation, this became a crucial point for some of the investigators, who noted at one point during the ill-fated flight, it's recorded that the plane went off course over the Malacca Strait, providing a clear view of Penang. So the investigators theorized, and I'm going to give you a quote here. Give me 1 second.
Oh, goodness.
So there was a senior pilot named Simon Hardy, who was a senior pilot of the Boeing 777. Now, he theorized someone was looking at Penang. Someone was taking a long, emotional look at Penang. The captain was from Penang. It does a strange hook. In order to look at Penang, you have to turn left or right, get alongside it, and then execute a long turn. If you look at the output from Malaysian 370, there were actually 3 turns, not one. Someone was looking at Penang.
Oh, no. Oh, my gosh.
This was thought to be a deliberate act by Captain Shah, a final look at his childhood home before acting out a murder-suicide plot and ditching the plane somewhere in the Indian Ocean.
Oh,
so that's what people theorize.
That's really eerie because his last communication is good night from Malaysia Flight 370, to quote it loosely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so eerie. That's so eerie. I mean,
now there's never been any definitive evidence to prove Captain Shah had anything malicious to do with the disappearance. There's still a large number of people who believe this is the most likely case. The family of Captain Shah, even his wife, has came out and said on many occasions that these are all false, and there's no way Captain Shah could ever do anything like this.
Yeah, because it is drastic. It is very, very drastic. You're talking about not only doing that to yourself and your co-pilot, assuming there is one, the crew, people you work with. but also like, over 200 people that don't even know you. And I mean, for a murder suicide, you're just deciding on behalf of so many people other than yourself. It's quite drastic. So I don't know. My sympathies. My sympathies. That's
Now,
awful.
like I said, he's a 53-year-old pilot, has had highly regarded by his peers, which unfortunately is why some professionals in the aviation field argue that this is unfortunately the most likely case, because he is the only person knowledgeable enough and skilled on the plane at the time to pull off a disappearance like this.
Oh.
Yeah. So to this day, however, there has never been any official documents implicating Captain Shaw. So there's never been any official report saying that, placing the blame on him.
Wow.
So this tragedy only occurred 8 years ago and still affects a lot of people this day. And I don't want to make light of it or, make fun or take away from the impact it had. So, but I do want to talk about some of the fringe theories.
Oh gosh.
Some of the oddball theories that people did have on Malaysian Flight 370.
Let's do it. I'm excited, but not at the same. You know that feeling where like you shouldn't be excited.
Yeah,
you kind of are. It's kind of like when someone tells a joke at a funeral, and you're like, I don't know if I should laugh.
Right. Now, one of these theories that we're going to talk about, it did get considerable attention around the time of the incident, and this was the idea that Flight 370 was sucked into a black hole.
Well, I didn't know you were gonna go there. Okay.
That's one of the big theories. And if you go, like, if you even look at, like, I don't know, if you search like Malaysian Flight 370, you'll find a lot of like artwork or like, images of, Flight 370 being sucked into a black hole, or, a black hole appearing in the sky and taking Flight 370.
That's so weird.
Like, you'll find that. So just days after the disappearance of the aircraft, U.S. Department of Transportation Inspector General Mary Shivo made an appearance on CNN Tonight with presenter Don Lemon. Now, during this interview, Don Lemon asked if Shivo believed it to be preposterous that Flight 370 was consumed by a black hole. Shivo responded that a small black hole would suck our entire universe in with it. So we know that's not the case. Now, this would not be the first time an event such as a black hole would be used to hypothesize a mysterious disappearance. I mean, we see it a lot. Anytime you talk about the Bermuda Triangle, I know that's kind of a big theory there, is that there's some sort of portal or black hole that's taking ships and planes. So it's not out of the realm of like possibility for people to come up with this theory, or it's obviously other maybe. I'm not saying black holes are not out of the realm of possibility, but it's not odd for people to be like, oh, a black hole, because it's kind of ingrained with the long history of the Bermuda Triangle. So Stanford University physics professor Peter Mickelson and Columbia University astronomy professor David J. Helfand, these guys published an article in on thewire.com, basically giving all the reasons that wasn't the case.
Oh, gosh.
And this did cause a lot of backlash to CNN, because it was days after the disappearance and they're talking about black holes.
Oh no.
Yeah.
CNN, you should know better.
You would think, like,
CNN,
just days after this, and they're like throwing around these wild ideas.
I mean, you at least gotta wait like a month. Like, I mean, like,
or
just let it blow over just a wee.
At least 8 years.
I mean, yeah, 8 years is fine. But I mean, at the end of the day, we don't know what happened.
Right.
We don't know. And black holes actually scare the shit out of me. So when she went, it would swallow our whole universe, I'm like, okay, noted. Like, we're safe. All right.
Now, other wild theories include the plane being struck by a meteor. That was ruled to be highly unlikely.
Oh, yeah.
Just statistically. I mean, and of course, aliens got thrown around, things like that,
My dude.
Electrical storms, things like that. So, but, we got that out of the way. I want to wrap things up by discussing possibly one of the most likely theories of what happened to MH370.
Oh, you saved the best one for last.
Well, this is like, there's a lot that goes in this one, because it's highly likely. There's stuff that can disprove it. It also kind of like goes into the conspiracy theory aspect thing. So this was believed by many to be the most likely of all the theories. So
Okay.
Early in the podcast, I mentioned that Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 was at the time considered to be the deadliest incident involving the Boeing 777. It would not hold that notoriety for long. On Thursday, July 17th, 2014, we're still in 2014, mind you, a little over 4 months after the loss of MH370, Malaysian Airlines Flight 17 departed Amsterdam Airport bound for Kuala Lumpur International Airport, the same airport that Flight MH370 departed from.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the flight path took the aircraft over Ukraine, which at the time was at the beginning of their conflict with Russia, which still this day is ongoing.
Oh,
so,
my gosh.
as the aircraft was flying over Ukrainian airspace, all communication was suddenly lost. Radar showed the craft there, and then gone. It'd be determined in the investigation that the plane was struck by a BUK M1 ground-to-air missile
What?
fired from the area in Ukraine controlled by pro-Russian militants.
What?
Yeah. So MH17 was struck, causing it to disintegrate in midair, spreading debris and bodies across 19 square miles.
A residential flight. A people flight.
Yeah. All 298 on board were sadly lost.
Oh, no.
Yes. So that was 4 months after Malaysian Flight 370. A second Malaysian flight was lost.
Oh.
This one, obviously, we knew what happened. Now, could Malaysian Flight 370 have suffered a similar fate? Now, even prior to the loss of Flight MH17, this idea was speculated upon by various officials. Now, something to consider is the supposed location where MH370 was lost.
Yeah.
Unlike MH17 incident, there was no reported conflict over the Indian Ocean. And the Malaysian Air Force at one point detected MH370 on the radar and didn't engage because it was apparent that it was just a commercial flight. So they had no reason to fire upon it.
Oh, man.
So this begs the question. If Flight 370 was shot down, why?
Yeah, why? Oh, my gosh. By who?
So here's where we're going to get in this. So located in the Indian Ocean lies the island of Diego Garcia, which during the Cold War was established as a military base, which was touted as an unsinkable aircraft carrier. And this was occupied by the United States. So during its use in such campaigns as the Iranian Revolution, Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, Operation Desert Fox, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, it was a very important port for the United States Navy and Air Force.
Right.
So during December 22nd, 2014, Mark Dugan, he was formerly of Proteus Airlines, he proposed the idea that perhaps the U.S. military shot down the plane out of fear it was attacking in a similar vein as the 9/11 attacks.
Sir.
So his theory was that the plane was near Diego Garcia, and the American military saw it, sees it flying near, thinks, "Oh shit, they're going to crash that plane into us," and they shoot it down.
But wouldn't they with how they're able to see with all their technology and stuff, wouldn't they be able to look and see that it doesn't look like another military aircraft?
Well, that's what I'm saying. With 9/11, though, those weren't military planes.
That's right. Yep.
So those are just commercial flights.
Mm-hmm.
This was dismissed by a lot of people as being a rash claim. But here's why I kind of think that it could be the most possible idea. Is because, say, something did happen to the communications, which we know half hour into the flight, no one could communicate with flight MH370. So what if there was something wrong with their communication? For whatever reason, they flew too close to Diego Garcia. They tried to make contact with the MH370, couldn't make any contact, and took that as a sign that this was maybe a hostile aircraft, and that spurred a violent reaction.
Did the FAA is that?
It's not FAA over them. I don't know what their governing body is.
Well, did the U.S. ever respond to such claims? Like no. Okay. Like,
which, if anyone's good at hiding stuff like this, it's Americans. So
we are very secretive.
Could the military have been like, oh shit, we shot down a commercial aircraft of a friendly nation? Let's hide this.
Yeah, because that would cause all kinds of uproar. Like that would be bad. That'd be bad.
Now, the most damning piece in all this, and all these theories, I think, is the lack of debris. Because, as stated just a little bit ago, MH17 was struck and it spread debris over 19 square miles.
Yeah.
Yet, after all these years, only small pieces of 370 have ever been recovered. No bodies, no flight recorder, only questions. And that's what makes Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 the most tragic and mysterious disappearance in modern aviation.
Oh, I got chills.
So there you have it. That was File 002.
002. What a banger. Oh, man. I'm left with so many thoughts. I will definitely still get on an airplane, but I'm not going over an ocean in an airplane.
Oh yeah, that's terrifying. Flying over the ocean. That's terrifying. Like I said, like it's airlines and flying is actually very safe. But yeah, this was one of those things where we still today don't know what happened, and that's just crazy.
Yeah, because here we are. What 6 years? Can I count right?
8 years.
8 years. 8 years. We've been saying it all this episode. My brain's fried, guys. I'm very sorry. Yeah, here we are 8 years later and still have like no answers. It's just so mind-boggling, and like all the information that's come out, the fact that there was no debris found or very little debris found. Very little.
Now there was something called the vertical impact theory. I believe Yale University, I think, not Yale, one of the big major colleges in the United States kind of did like a study on it. So there was a theory that the plane entered the ocean vertically, straight down.
Oh,
which would be less surface area, so it would have kind of like crashed intact. It would just like went right in the ocean.
Yeah,
and that could be why there's so little.
Yeah.
And that kind of would line up with the idea that it ran out of fuel. It runs out of fuel and just drops.
Yeah. And I mean, it would ideally, well, not ideally, but then like, I guess just sink down to the bottom of the ocean if it fell intact.
But and again, that's like one of those things. If it would have crashed that way, there's a whole plane sitting at the bottom of the Indian Ocean. That would pick up if you were like doing sonar, because they had sonar and submersibles. You're going to find a whole plane, I imagine. I don't want to say easily, because I mean the ocean's huge.
But I mean,
I feel like that's something you would pick up.
You would detect something, like you would detect something that would either lead you to it, or you would find the whole thing. I
know that it's these ocean mysteries, and because the ocean's a terrifying place just in general. I mean, it's vast. It's just vast, unescapable like darkness. If you go in the ocean, it's unfathomable. So there are like mysteries in our history of like whole fleets of aircraft going missing and never being recovered. I mean, we know that. I mean, there's whole ships that went missing, and I mean it's crazy.
There are some crazy photographs out there of like whole ass ships like from like 100 years ago being found at like the bottom of oceans. So like, I don't know. Could it be possible that one day we find an MH370 possible.
It's possible.
If it is at the bottom of the ocean.
If it's on our planet, like you said, it could have got sucked into a black hole. We don't know.
If it's in a black hole, the aliens may have swooped down and been like, "This one's mine."
Yeah.
They were getting payback from Roswell. They're like, "Well, they took ours. We're gonna
take theirs.
We're taking this one."
But that was, yeah. I had a lot of. This was very interesting to research.
This was awesome.
Yeah, this was very good. So
this was great, man. Like I said, this was an awesome way to follow up Roswell. This was great. I had chills. Ugh. I have so many questions.
It's terrifying, but there we have it, guys. That was file 002, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, the most tragic and mysterious disappearance in modern aviation history. Love to hear what you guys think about it.
Yes.
So it's a pretty high profile disappearance. I know there's been like theory, like rumors and stuff like this around very recently, I think, of like these commercial or these private oceanic research groups like saying they believe they found the wreckage.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think there was like a some sonar team think they may have found the resting place MH370. They haven't got to investigate it yet. But I know there's been like rumors out, so it's very interesting.
That's very interesting.
Still, it's just one of those mysteries that endures. 8 years later, it's still just baffling.
It really
especially
is.
in the modern day where we have so much technology.
Yeah, and especially with ocean technology right now, because we've seen a lot more come out. Like, for me, it's been within like the past decade, because that's when I started paying attention to it. But I mean, yeah, it's totally possible that like within our lifetimes, they could find it. And that's insane. And I mean, just the scale that you're looking at, the whole thing is just so mind-boggling. And yeah, if I see this pop up again, I'm definitely going to be paying attention to what's happening with it in the news.
Yeah, I know it's like cliche to say, but you know, we know more about outer space than we do about our own ocean.
Oh yeah. Oh,
that's so cliche to say, but you know, you never know what's down there or what, you know, could be sitting at the bottom of our oceans right now.
Oh no, there's new species being found like every year or so.
Right. So there you have it, guys. I'd love to hear what any of you think of Malaysian Flight 370, because I'm sure there's a lot of opinions, a lot of speculation on this. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to hear it. And you can let us know anything. You can let us know. Best place to find us, Instagram at Cult Talk Net. Also Facebook at Cult Talk Net. YouTube at Cult Talk Net, and Twitter at Cult Talk Net. It's all across the board. You can find us very easily. Let us know what you guys think. I'm very interested to hear it, as always. So, Bailey, do you have anything for this?
I didn't know where we were going with that. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. Let us know in the comments what you thought. I would really like to know if you remember when this happened, because I know some of you were born in like 2000 and beyond, which is crazy to me. But yeah, let us know like what you were doing, how you found out about it, because that stuff is always cool to me. And you know, always send us different conspiracies if you find any. We'd love to research.
Oh yeah, and we are following this up because it is September, but you know what next month is?
I'm so excited.
It's Culttober.
Yes, it's Culttober time.
Culttober, our Cult Talk Net annual celebration of all things Halloween, month-long celebration. We'll have special episodes of Cult of Campbell, our Bruce Campbell podcast.
Yes.
Cult of Lore, our deep dive, lore-based podcast. And every Friday through Culttober, special horror movie reviews only available at youtube.com/culttalknet. And also, that all leads up to our big Halloween Eve.
Yes.
This year. So
yes.
Halloween Eve.
It is Halloween Eve this year. Yes.
Halloween Eve this year. Special, where we'll be doing a watch along. The whole Cult Talk Net crew watching along Beetlejuice.
So excited.
It's going to be a great time. I cannot wait for that. Super excited for that. And also we'll have episodes of Cult Talk Conspiracy. And the next episode, File 003, Bailey's doing
Mothman.
The wow.
Legend of a Mothman. Very close to home for us here in Ohio. Very, very close to home. I was wearing a Mothman shirt one day, and a guy actually called me out and was like, "My family's from Point Pleasant." I was like, "Oh, tell him I said hi."
Oh yeah.
Like,
I want to go to Point Pleasant here soon. Take Evan down because he hasn't ever been. He didn't realize how close.
Yes.
It's only like an hour and a half.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's not that bad at all. Cult Talk Net trip to Point Pleasant.
I'm down for that.
Yes. Yes,
So-
I would love it.
So there we have it, guys. Keep an eye out or ear out. I don't know.
Whichever
Keep
one.
a lookout for File 003 Mothman as part of Culttober. Until then, I've been Ty.
I have been Bailey. Question everything.